So welcome back to the physics class, children. So in today's class, let us try to solve the worksheet number 1 of the concept light. Okay, here we go with the worksheet number 1 of light. Moving to the first question of level 1, the phenomenon in which light that strikes a surface and is thrown back into the same medium is called as, I repeat, the phenomenon, the process in which light after striking the surface and is again moving back to the same surface, that phenomenon is called as, what is that? Is it reflection or refraction? Moving back to the same medium, it is called as a reflection, the reflection of light. Okay, so the first option, that is the phenomenon in which light strikes a surface and is again thrown back into the same medium is called as reflection of light. So now to the second question, a ray of light falling on a mirror is, so that light ray when falls on a surface, that portion of light before falling on the surface, that is called as your incident light. Returning back light is called as reflected light. So a ray of light falling on the mirror is called as a incident light ray. So option number 3. Now to the next question, third one. If the angle of incidence is 45 degrees, what is given? If angle of incidence is given as 45 degrees, you are asked to find the angle of reflection. Then what is the value of R? According to the first law of reflection, we know that angle of incidence I must be equals to angle of reflection R. But what is the value of I given? As 45 degrees. Hence, R must also be equals to 45 degrees. Hence, option 3 must be true. So, moving to the next question, fourth one, the angle formed between the incident ray and the normal is called as, the angle between the incident ray and the normal is called as, what is that angle called as, children? Yep. So the angle between the normal and the incident ray is called as your angle of incidence, whereas the angle between the reflected ray and normal is called as your angle of reflection. So here we go. Angle formed between the incident and normal. This angle is called as angle of incidence. So option 1 must be true. Next one, a perpendicular drawn at the point of incidence on the surface of the mirror. So again the mirror is considered. On this mirror a perpendicular is drawn. Okay, and this is called, what is this called, children? This perpendicular drawn onto the mirror is called as normal. It's called as normal. And this point where the incident light ray strikes the surface is called as point of incidence. This point is called as point of incidence because this is the place where the incident ray strikes the mirror. Well, so perpendicular drawn to the point of incidence is called as, at this point, if any perpendicular is drawn, point of incidence, the perpendicular drawn is called as normal. When a ray of light strikes a plane mirror along the normal, the angle of incidence is, so here we have a mirror and this is the normal drawn to the surface, and it was given that a light ray strikes a plane mirror along the normal. Along the normal means something exactly like this. Then what is the angle made? Along the normal means the angle of incidence is 0 degrees. Straight ahead. Okay. So if here means some 30 degrees, here means some 45 degrees, here means some 60, 70, 80, 90 and so on. But if it is incident, straight ahead on the normal, then the angle of incidence would be 0. Okay. Well, so answer is 0 degrees. Now to the next question, 7th one. The incident ray and the reflected ray from a mirror are mutually perpendicular to each other. So what is given? So you were given two rays. So this is your plane mirror, and here is the normal drawn to the plane mirror. It was given that the incident ray and the reflected ray mutually perpendicular to each other. They both are perpendicular to each other. This is your incident ray and this is your reflected ray. Angle between the incident ray and reflected ray is 90 degrees. But we know that, and you are asked to find the angle of incidence. How much is this angle? We know that angle I must be equals to angle R. Okay. But it was given that I plus R is given as 90 degrees. Total angle I and angle R together they gave it as 90 degrees, isn't it? But substituting the equation 1 in equation 2. So wherever you find I you can replace with R, or wherever you find R you can replace it with I. Then how much you are getting, children? I keeping like this, instead of R you can replace with I. Okay, this I as it is I have considered, R is replaced with I, is equals to right side you have 90 degrees. Angle I plus angle I is equals to 2 angle I is 90 degrees. If 2 times of angle I is 90 degrees, angle I must be equals to 90 by 2, and that must be 45 degrees. Got it? Well, now to the 8th question. So what is the question given? The angle between the incident and reflected ray is how much? The angle between the incident ray and the reflected ray is equal to the angle of incidence? No. Is equal to the angle of reflection? No. Angle between the incident ray and this total angle you are asked. We know that this portion is angle of incidence and this portion is angle of reflection. C is equal to the angle of incidence, this total angle? No. Is equal to this particular angle, this total angle? No way. Double the angle of incidence? Of course, because we know that angle I is equals to angle R. So if this happens to be I, this can also be taken as I. I plus I. Total angle is I plus I, totally 2I. Hence, double the angle of incidence. Okay, got it? The angle between the, here the total complete portion, the angle between the incident ray and reflected ray is double the angle of incidence. Hence, option 3. Moving to the 9th question. If the angle between the mirror and the incident ray is 40 degrees, let us visualize that. So this is your mirror. It was, and here is the normal drawn to the mirror. Let this be incident ray and this be reflected ray. It was given that the angle between the mirror and the incident ray, this is your mirror and this is your incident ray, this glazing angle itself they gave it as 40 degrees. So what is given? The angle between the mirror and the incident ray is 40 degrees. The angle of reflection, you are asked to find this portion R. I hope the question is clear, children. Angle between the mirror and incident ray is given as 40 degrees. You are asked to find the angle R. So before solving this, let us try to understand. What must be the angle between the normal and the plane mirror? It must be 90 degrees because normal is not perpendicular to the surface. So the total angle must be 90 degrees. If the total angle is equals to 90 degrees and this portion is equals to 40 degrees, what must be the remaining portion? The remaining portion must be equals to the angle I, which is equals to the total angle minus this angle. The total angle minus this portion, that is angle I must be equals to complete angle 90 degrees minus the given angle 40 degrees. Is that clear, children? Yeah. In order to find this portion, you have to subtract this 40 degrees from the complete angle. The complete angle must be 90 degrees. 90 minus 40 will give you the angle of incidence. And this is equals to 50 degrees. So this we found it as 50 degrees. But you are asked to find the angle of reflection. So in order to find the angle of reflection, we know that angle I is equals to angle R. If I is equals to 50 degrees, R must also be equals to 50 degrees. So option 3 must be true. Okay. Well, the next question, that is 10th question. If the angle between the incident ray and the reflected ray is 10 degrees, it's not if the angle between the incident ray and the reflected ray is 100 degrees, the angle of reflection is, let us picturize the same. What is given? This must be your normal, this must be your plane mirror, MM1. If the angle between the incident ray and reflected ray, here is your incident ray and here is your reflected ray. The total angle itself between the two, the total angle they have given it as 100 degrees. Earlier it was given as 90 degrees, now they gave the same as 100 degrees. Then you are asked to find the angle of reflection, that means only this portion. So how much it would be? We know that angle I plus angle R is equals to 100 degrees. Since we have the value of I is equals to angle of R, you can replace I with R or R with I. So as they are asking for reflection, R should be kept. So I should be changed to R. So instead of I can replace it with R plus symbol. This is R equals to 100 degrees. R plus R is 2 times of angle R is 100 degrees and angle R must be equals to 50 degrees. So second option must be true. Okay. So while moving to the next question, question number 11. Angle of reflection is the angle between. So what is angle of reflection? This is your incident ray. This is your reflected ray. So what is given? The angle of reflection. This is your angle of reflection. Okay. So angle of reflection is the angle between what and what? This is your reflected ray. This is your incident ray. So angle of reflection is the angle between normal drawn to the surface and the reflected ray. Reflected ray and the reflecting surface? No. This reflected ray and the incident ray? This complete? No. Reflected ray and normal to the surface? Yes. Angle of reflection R is equals to the angle between the reflected ray and the normal to the reflecting surface. Clear? Well, moving towards the 12th question, children. So what is given? The ratio of incident angle to the reflected angle is. So what you are asked to find out? The ratio of incident angle to the reflecting angle. We know that angle I is equals to angle R. But in the question they were asking us to find out the ratio of angle of incidence to the angle of reflection. So as I is equals to R, R can also be replaced as I, same values, so 1. Goes 1 upon 1. Hence the answer must be 1:1. Clearly the first option 1:1. So now to the next question. A light ray is incident normally on a plane mirror. So we have to consider a plane mirror. On this plane mirror, a light ray normally is drawn. Light ray is directly incident. How? Normally on a plane mirror. So whenever it is incident normally onto the plane mirror, angle of incidence must be 0 degrees. This implies angle of reflection is also equals to 0 degrees because I is equals to R. The reason for this is since I is equals to R. So if I is taken as 0, R must also be taken as 0. This is incident ray and the same path the reflected ray also takes. The angle of reflection will be, of course, it is 0 degrees. Well.